So I grew up in a non-Christian household. I actually grew up where both of my parents were on meth at the time I was born. So I didn't really have God in my life back then during my childhood. My dad was especially abusive to my mom, and I can just remember him pounding my mom's face in and the doors slamming and walls shaking, and it was just a very traumatic childhood. I got into Kamehameha Middle School. Unfortunately, that's when I started showing some major signs of depression, and I went into kind of an episode of just ups and downs and a whirlwind of emotions. When all of this was happening, I personally did not know why I was feeling this way. During my sophomore year, I committed suicide. And it was one of the toughest decisions that I've ever made. I hung myself, and about 10 hours later, I woke up in an ER. After that, I was admitted to a psych ward for 6 months. After I got discharged from the psych ward, that's when I started doing some really self-destructive behaviors. I started cutting myself. I started drinking. I got into some really heavy marijuana use. God still wasn't in my life, and I wasn't ready for Him to be in my life. And I later found out that along with my major depressive disorder, I also was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Yeah, no one really sat me down and explained the gospel to me. No one really took that upon themselves, so I went on living my life this way. All of my accolades, all of my achievements was because of me. All of my failures was all because of me. 3 days after graduation, I was kicked out of my mom's house. I was homeless for about 3 months. When I got kicked out of my mom's house, it was more traumatic than me living a destructive lifestyle, just because that was the turning point of where I've realized that I've lost my family. When God first came into my life, I was 18, and I got a text from one of my coworkers. Her name is Katie, and she just sent me this really simple text, and it said, "Hey, I don't know why, but I think God wants me to pray for you." It was just that small little text. That's all it really took. I started becoming more interested in what and who God was. I started going to church every Sunday, and the community at church was just amazing. As I mentioned before, I thought I had no family. I thought I had no home. I thought I had no money. But when I went to Pava'a Community Church, it made it seem like I was already a part of their family, and they didn't really know me at the time. So I started investing my time in trying to figure out who God is, what's He all about. On September 22nd, 2013, I got baptized. I was surrounded with a cloud of witnesses, and when you're surrounded with this type of people and this type of atmosphere, you can't help but to make that feeling contagious to others. That's when I started really getting to know God, really deepening my relationship with Him. I guess what my testimony is all about is really defining myself as a follower of Christ. Before I got baptized, I was kind of defining myself as a bad kid. I defined myself as a depressive kid. But now, I define myself as a child of God. I define myself as a follower of Christ. I define myself as someone who people can look up to.